God, and we're basically a hive mind, and thus anything we can think of becomes reality. And with that setup, he basically is just using that to discredit any argument against his stance, because with his beliefs, anything you say can't go against what it is because you are God. It's all stupid.
It's interesting because
And then you've got
I let's keep going. Let's keep
Christianity.
going with this because I want to be honest with you. I sort of align with that somewhat. I align with that idea.
That we're a hive mind,
No, not the hive mind. Well, it's that's an interesting definition. I think that that's a weird.
or the Warhammer 40K orc thing where anything we believe becomes reality.
Well, explain that.
So anything that we believe subconsciously, according to him, mind you, his words, so I don't know if I'm going to be explaining this very
Okay.
well. Um, what you believe in your subconscious controls your actions, but your subconscious can make things that aren't even just your actions become reality as well. It was weird because he was trying to argue that you don't have free will, but do when it comes to your subconscious. But if I understand the subconscious correctly, you don't have conscious control over your subconscious, which is where he gets into the whole God's will thing.
That's interesting. It begs the question who you are. Like who is you? Are you your subconscious or your conscious? Is there a mix of the two?
Well, I think it is definitely a mix. I don't personally, I don't understand the whole want or need to add religion to it. And when it comes to religion, I believe that it's just a helpful tool for developing societies and weak-willed individuals. Like the fear of death is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, Not knowing what's after, to be able to put your faith in, like that there would be a heaven, it can be reassuring. Also, religion can help give moral guidelines for a society to follow, and in that aspect, I believe it's helpful.
Well,
But
do
that's all it
you
is to
do
me.
you find the because maybe the way he was talking about religion, it was more he was talking about spirituality because those two things are
No, no,
different.
he was being very specific that God is real, not spirituality, God, and that we are all God
No, I'm saying
in
religion. The
our
way you're
subconscious.
explaining it, you seem to find that religion is like the organized thing. Organized religion helps
Oh,
with running societies, but religion in itself
it,
is more just spirituality. It's like
uh,
what you
I'd
believe
say that's probably a
that God
that's
is.
probably.
Is that accurate?
Um, I mean, I'm agnostic, so I don't really know if there's a God,
Right.
but yes, I do believe organized religion, or just religion in general, can be helpful to a society. Not that it always is.
Yeah, not that it always is. And helpful is interesting word too. It's like helpful means there's a goal that you're working towards. So like helpful towards a goal, I think that religions are helpful
Right.
towards getting towards whatever goal it
Yeah.
is, whether it's a good or bad goal. That's up to individuals to decide.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
Although I do
I
always get a chuckle out of the whole, you know, how people decide their religion. Because religion, at least from my viewpoint, is a solely belief-based system. It, you believe it, and that's what it is. There's no proof. Um, and with that being said, like, imagine, a Christian dies and then shows up and he's got Anubis leading him to go have his heart weighed. Like,
hmm,
God, that would just give me a chuckle.
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny to think about that. It's funny that that is a possibility too.
Hmm.
I think that's what makes it fun is like we don't know, so it could be true or it couldn't be or it could not be true, but you don't really know.
Right. So I have heard something recently, and I love it because obviously me talking about hive minds, Warhammer 40K when comparing, that guy's idea on his religion. I like the fantastical things, and apparently, when you die, there's been research on what happens with the brain,
Hmm.
synapses firing and whatnot,
Yeah.
that it can actually reproduce a hyper accelerated, the whole life flashes before your eyes thing. That there could be some plausible explanation for the belief that people are reincarnated or more modernly isekai'd, where basically your brain in a very short period of time you almost experience an entire life, but
I
really
I
it's
think,
just a fabrication of your imagination.
well, get this, because that sort of, when you experience it, it sort of is real.
Right.
So I'm of the same belief, I'll be honest with you. Just when I learned that when you die, your body gives you DMT. And right now your body gives you like right now you're technically tripping on DMT, right? Like as we're speaking. Every human is, because every human has a little gland in their brain that produces that 24/7. And you're just constantly on this substance. But there's 2 points in your life, and I would say that there might even be more, like maybe when you have your first child, and other instances like this, your body gives you DMT. But there's two proven by science times, and that's when you're born and when you die, that your body gives you more than what you're normally on. So our brain tripping on DMT while at the same time slowing down its function to eventually come to an end. I am under I have this belief that our perception of time, it slows down to infinity, where we experience infinity, and not just a lifetime, but infinite lifetimes, infinite just everything that we experience as we're laying there dying. And there's this equation that I use. It's a pretty simple one to try to help people visualize what this looks like. It's, let's say you're getting closer to death, and every
Religion.
oh, you're talking to your coworker.
Sorry. No, continue. They were just wondering what
So as you get
I
closer,
was talking about.
your perception of time gets divided by two, or like the way that you experience time, it doubles as you go, as you continue. So with zero being death, if you divide your time on Earth by two, you technically never get to zero.
Makes sense.
So you'd never
I,
actually
I
get
follow
to
that
death.
logic.
Yeah. That's what I visualize when I think of death, is we're just going to keep dividing our experience by two. And we're going to experience everything, but it's not going to it's it's relatively going to be experienced slower. So take an example of people that do these DMT trips sometimes, and are in the trip for a couple hours, but they experience in that trip years, potentially a lifetime in some cases. This has happened where someone had experienced an entire lifetime in what was really just like a couple of hours. That's what I imagine happens when we die.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
like I
to
said, I
the
like,
infinite degree. Keep going.
I like the idea of the whole, you can experience life, and to an extent, it would be, obviously, influenced by your own subconscious at that point. So, like, if you believed in isekais, maybe you live out some heroic fantasy isekai bullshit, or maybe you just wanted to relive your life or replay some events.
Or
I
maybe
like the
you
idea of
live
it.
every life, because if you really are there infinitely, you do experience technically everything. And you
Yeah.
and you can go off of what you have lived and what you have experienced, so your memories essentially. And those start to go away as your brain signals start to die. So you're working with less, but you're still working with everything, because less means really nothing when it comes to your experience. It's still technically your experience.
Right.
It's strange, and I wonder what that time dilation looks like. I wonder if it is infinite.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like, well, like I said, I like the idea. I don't believe that's what happens. Unfortunately, the sad reality for me is I believe you die and that's it.
Hmm.
There's nothing after, no void, no hell, no heaven. It's just done. Which is, yeah, it's not the most pleasant idea, but
That's a tough reality to live in.
yeah,
What's led you
it
to
is what
believe
it
that?
is. It just seems like the most likely thing to occur.
Okay, so you just logically you see that as what's likely.
Yep,
Hmm. That sounds tough.
it does kind of suck. Which is why, like, I wish I could get behind like a religion, but I just it, it's funny because someone, I don't even remember what my statement was about their religion, and they're like, oh no, it was the Big Bang. And he said, oh, so it's easier to believe the Big Bang than God created the universe? That's some Harry Potter mystic mumbo jumbo. I'm like, are you serious right now? You're comparing the Big Bang Theory to mystics and magic, but not an all-powerful being that can just alter reality.
Sorry, the your I went away from Mike for a second. There's some crazy people shooting guns off the bridge near where I live.
Oh, but yeah, no, I found it funny that they were saying the Big Bang Theory was like Harry Potter hocus pocus, but their God that can alter reality, that's an obvious truth. But
Well,
to
it's
me,
it's
that
not
just
that it's
doesn't
hocus
click.
pocus. It's that that stuff doesn't really. I guess the Big Bang, that's all trying to find objective reality. But that's only when you give objective reality all the power, you try to figure out the most about objective reality that you can. So trying to figure out the Big Bang is just trying to figure out the the world that we all live in instead of the world that you live in. Where religion, I think it tries to pinpoint the world that you as an individual live in. And I think that's what that guy was talking about, Extremo, apparently, is just trying to pinpoint that rather than pinpoint what it is, what the reality is for everyone. Because at the end of the day, what the reality is for everyone doesn't really matter. Because we're not going to die in the world that everyone lives in. We're only going to die in the one that we do.
I mean, fair.
So it's not that it's hocus pocus. It's that it. I think that they don't really see much value in that. They don't put much weight in that, which I think is fine. And there is power to figuring out the objective. It helps us to set up rules and live a life a certain way. And it helps to find agreements during our lifetime with the people that live in the same objective reality that we live in. But trying to find the 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 Big Bang in our subjective reality is, I would say, more important. Trying to find the truths in our subjective reality leads to religions. It leads to spirituality. It leads to trying to figure out who God is, what God is. It's just a different route. Trying to find, it's a different goal. Which I like. I like that goal. It just feels it feels more important. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I could see where you're coming from, but I'm trying to think of a way to say what I'm thinking without coming off as rude. It just,
No. Just say it. Just say what you feel, and I will decode it
well,
the way I
just,
will, and I will let you know how I decoded it. And if it's wrong, you can address it. You can add more context. But that's where you start.
well, okay. So I guess my initial reaction to that was just, it just sounds like make believe, and we're already associating that there is a God of some kind in there, and with that, I feel like, especially when it's just based off your subjective, well, yes, ultimately you have to deal with your life, and I mean, there's, you know, uh, what is it, an argument to be made that if you can't perceive something, then does it really exist? You know, whole
Yeah.
if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Kind of theories, but I don't know. It just
Well, the whole make a sound thing, I think is easy. It's like if the tree falls in the forest, the world will move. There will be it will affect the world. Like there will be sound waves created, which are like vibrations. There will be vibrations created, and you won't hear them, but technically speaking, they will affect you just to the negative by an exponent degree. It's like it will be so quiet that you won't be able to hear it. So it won't make a sound because
so to clarify, that was a simplistic version of the does reality exist without our perception of it?
does reality exist? It's everything does affect you.
Without our perception of it. If
Without
you can't
oh,
perceive it, does
if we
it
can't
exist?
perceive it. Well, the word sound means that we perceived it.
Well, right. That's why I was saying that that was an overly simplified uh, version of that. I guess I was trying to dumb it down for whatever reason.
It's a common phrase. That's one that is easy to. I mean, we can dive into that example to figure out the answer.
Well, no,
It's a great
I
example.
understand that if a tree falls, that it obviously makes a sound.
But in order for it to make a sound, one has to hear it.
Right?
It's
But
it's
even
a
as you said,
semantic
like,
issue. I think it's a semantic issue with that.
it just, I guess at its core, it just feels like a waste of time because as an individual chasing a subjective reality,
Well, it's
chasing a
if you can acknowledge that other people have subjective realities. So it's objective. like other people having subjectivity, I think is objective. I think that other people also experience, and it's not the same type. It's a little bit different for everybody. Like everyone has a different. Here's a good example. Everyone has different tools. So like our eyes don't all work the same. So we all are given different tools to. Like people that are colorblind won't be able to paint with the same colors that other people can, but they still paint.
Right.
And they still experience. And if you try to take that away, then if you take that away from people, other people's subjectivity, you can morally get away with a lot more. It's like if you call someone non-human, you don't feel as guilty doing terrible things to them. It's why the Holocaust happened. It's why slavery happened. Is they were able to dehumanize a group of people and say they aren't the same as us. They're less. So doing this to them isn't bad.
Right.
That's where you reach a problem. And if you have to give everybody the same value as you give yourself. And when you do that, you find morality.
Are we talking? Are you saying
Well,
that's where you find
that's where I find.
subjective
That's where I
or
find.
objective?
Well, fine. It's. What do you mean?
Morality, objective or subjective morality.
It's. I think morality is making subjectivity something that is objective, something that exists in everyone.
But see, that's where I feel we're going to disagree because there's nothing that can really be stated that is objectively moral that other people aren't going to disagree with. And I mean, I'd argue, you know, not assuming you're going to point to something that is technological based, but crimes that we would say are immoral nowadays that other cultures have perpetrated in mass and to a degree have even believed is moral.
Well, they've been able to remove humanity from these people. It's where you place it's where you place subjectivity that allows you to do these things. So let's take the Holocaust for example. They removed subjectivity from the Jews, from Jewish people. They made Jews out to be less than them. And when I mean less than them is that they don't experience that's the only way that you can get away with it is by truly believing that someone isn't human and that someone isn't experiencing emotions the same way you do.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's the case. I mean, that is one example of dehumanizing, but I mean, there's plenty of other, examples that I'm sure we can point to that they believe they're people. They just don't care.
I can't find that as the case. Like I don't think that that's possible.
Aztecs, Vikings, um, Genghis Khan. None of these thought that the other people were not people. They just didn't care. Or, well, I should say in the Aztecs, depends on if they were captives or, I guess you would call them citizens. for sacrifices. But I suppose Aztec is also a weird one because that was like religious based. I suppose a lot of
Well, it's playing through the, like, you can mentally, let's say someone truly believes that killing another person isn't bad because we all will live forever in heaven anyway. That would technically make it easier to kill someone
yeah, it would.
because you're not really killing them. You can't, if nobody can die, then me stabbing someone isn't killing them. If you truly believe
Yeah.
that. Now, if you believe that killing someone affects your outcome, where you end up in this infiniteness, that's where, like, that's the morality.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of like kind of on that aspect of do unto others as you want unto yourself, but then at the same time, I can also identify that may be what I want, but it's definitely not what I practice. Or if I had the opportunity, it's not what I would practice, but
Do
it's
you
what I
not think
want to
so? Because I
believe.
think that we're put into a world where we're not always given the opportunity. So we're essentially we feel as if we're forced to not do unto others as we'd like done to ourselves. But I think given the opportunity to, we would. It's like
See,
part of the world is, oh, you've heard the do unto others as you would want done unto yourself. You'd love for everyone to just give you their money,
but I wouldn't
but
give
you
my money
wouldn't
to
give your money
everyone.
to others. And that's because you're put in a
Right.
position where you can't, like, doing that would hurt you.
But you're saying if it wouldn't hurt me, that I would?
Exactly.
I mean, I can follow that logic. I feel like I would if I knew it wouldn't, you know, adversely affect me.
Yeah. I mean, I I couldn't think of an example where you wouldn't, if you thought it wouldn't if it wouldn't adversely affect you. And you get into this thing of, like, if heaven is the only thing that matters, then technically giving everything that you own to somebody else would land you a better spot in heaven.
Actually, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not very religious. Um, but wouldn't be doing that for the express purpose of your spot in heaven end up having the adverse effect according to the teachings of Christianity?
What, like it would send you to hell?
Not well, not necessarily to hell, but it what sin would that be? If you're basically doing it for the reward, then it's like doing charity and posting it online. You're doing it for the publicity. You're not actually doing it for the charity, if that makes sense. Vanity, right? That'd be the sin.
Yeah, it's doing it, but without the recognition is a difficult thing. Like, giving and not being recognized for giving is difficult, but it's seen as very, I guess, I don't want to say, like, manly.
I
It's
mean,
it's
would
it's
virtue
it's
be the
seen
word
as
you're looking for?
virtuous. Yeah, virtue's a great word for it. I think that's the word I was looking for. It's like giving without being recognized, without wanting to be recognized, is virtuous.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say that is uncommon for people to display them. Though. I
But
mean, I know it would be hard for me.
it feels, I will say something, in the cases where I've done it, it always feels amazing. It's like I work at a restaurant, and when people bring in their plates to give them to the dishwashers, it takes time, and because you can't just throw the plates in there, you have to separate them by each type of plate. So it takes a little bit of time, and that's a really big resource in in food service when you're serving. Is the time that I'm spending doing this is taking away from the time I have to give my table refills and do this and that, and it's going to take my money away too. If I don't get the refills out on time, if I don't get their breadsticks out on, it's Olive Garden. If I don't do these things, I'm going to lose money. So what I do when I don't have anything else to do, it's like when my tables are eating, is sometimes when people walk in with their plates, I will just tell them, "Hey, I'll break your plates for you. I'll put them in the dishwasher area. You go do your thing." And people really appreciate that. And I'm not getting any money from the servers. I sort of just get a thank you. And so technically I am still getting recognition, but I'm not getting money from it.
Right.
I don't work hourly. I work off my tips. So I'm not, and that's I'm not getting the recognition there, and I'm helping to keep other people happy, because I mean, one, it makes me feel good when I'm able to support people like that. The question is, would we ever do anything without wanting to get recognition? It's like, even like we give recognition to ourselves. So can one truly be virtuous?
Well, I mean, despite, oh, I'd say excluding the recognition you would give yourself, because at that point, then yeah, you're into that. No matter what you do, you fucked up. So if we exclude self-recognition, I would say most people wouldn't do things for others without expecting or wanting at least that recognition. Maybe not expecting, but wanting it.
I think that's a
I mean,
social thing. I think it's just the way that we evolved, where we do things for the group because the group is our family. And if someone in the group is succeeding, then you're succeeding too. You're part of the group, and you're able to be a person socially, that is seen as a helper, is seen as someone that you can rely on, and that
right.
person holds a lot of value in like the kind of groups that we, I think, evolved from, and that we're still,
Agree.
I feel, in, because I think that's still how we operate. It's just
Oh yeah, no,
our groups are now our workplace, and our family is still like the base group.
I totally agree. Like, it, I love that you brought that up because I like to say that humans are very tribalistic,
Hmm.
and that's why I feel like more localized government works a lot better with humans than like federal enforcement.
Yeah. Yep.
Just because
Yeah. So it
people,
leads
like you said, they
into
have their
politics.
groups.
Yeah. It's like, that's when you know the people that you are, like when the people that you're voting for you can actually meet them, and they actually know who you are. Like, you serve them food, or you sell them gas, or they rely on you, and that gives them more. I mean, it makes them better suited to be making decisions, because the decisions aren't just going to affect you, they're going to affect them too.
Right.
It's when these people are so far removed from their constituents, that's when you run into problems. I think that politically that's how it should be set up, is with more emphasis on, and that's sort of been the whole fight for in the United States anyway, is like, hey, we never, I mean, that's how we started, is we saw this king who was so far removed from the colonies and had no real reason to care, and it was reflected in the way that they were being taxed and the way that they were being treated by the military. And the people were fed up. They were like, this guy doesn't represent us. We need to break away and go local. And you get the United States. And that's always been the fight, is state, like, it's the, like, the states' rights is, the state versus federal has always been the fight. It really has. And that's, it's like the fight that the authoritarian versus libertarian. That's where I see the most fighting. It's in letting states decide, letting smaller governments decide what to do. That's what the Civil War happened about. It was like, we want to be able to make that decision on our own, and there's something to say about the Civil War, and the reason that it started is like the federal government decided, hey, you guys can't just do what you want because you're hurting people. And they needed to make African Americans and African slaves, they needed to make them people too, legally, so that there wouldn't be an issue there anymore. Because they were already people, it's just legally you could treat them as less. There was a war about it. And that it points to the problem with letting smaller governments decide things, is you might disagree on something that shouldn't be disagreed upon, but is, unfortunately. So, away from the political thing, what the guy up there, I imagine, Extremo, was talking about was where God lies in all this. It's like, what is God? I think God is that, like, it has a lot to do with the treat others the way you want to be treated. That idea, I think, is what another definition for God. And I say just another, I think it's one of the better definitions for what God is. And you can try to give God a sense of being. You can try to give him an identity. You can say, oh, God is a guy. He's a him. It's like, it doesn't really matter. The God living within all of us is God, is that treat others the way you want to be treated. That idea working for everybody, that idea making sense for everybody, is that what I think God is.
Well, I mean, it probably won't make sense to everybody, but like, that is the concept we want to go with. What is, like, the reasoning for treat others how you want to be treated? Because in my eyes, not giving it like a bodily form, but moving that goalpost back, I feel like it, in simpler terms, mutually assured destruction. You wouldn't kill someone because you wouldn't want to be killed.
Yeah. It's giving everybody the same value as yourself. It's like the idea that I was talking about
Well,
of
I
finding
don't.
subjectivity
Well, well,
is
wait. See,
equal within
mutually
everyone.
assured destruction is a little different, though. Mutually assured destruction doesn't mean that you are valuing their life equal to yours. It just means they have the ability to affect your life.
I think it's the
I don't
first
have
one
to.
though. Why wouldn't it be
Well, yeah.
finding yourself within everyone else?
I guess I may have missed the point. I got tripped up on something. Because we were talking treat others as you want to be treated, right?
Hmm.
Right. And I feel like the reason most people want to do that is because of mutually assured destruction.
But
Because it's just in
we
our
know that it
nature to
doesn't.
want to survive.
We know that it doesn't actually kill us if we kill someone else.
I mean, they definitely can lead to it. I mean, that's reasoning.
But I'm saying you can get away with murder.
Oh, yeah, and that's why people do it. Granted, there's also people that do it without thinking they'll get away with it, like a suicide bomber. They're obviously not going to get away with it. They're dead.
I guess that a suicide bomber is a great example of treating others the way you want to be treated.
Well, yeah, but it's also an example of mutually assured destruction too. I mean, at its core.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So one, I feel like treat others as you want to be treated is a more virtuous way, and it makes us feel better about ourselves. Where mutually assured destruction is more primalistic, and
It's like
I feel like unfortunately it's also closer to the reality.
take an
You
eye,
don't want
lose
to
an eye.
say it,
Yeah,
right? You don't want to say it because it just makes it seem like you're just being nice so that hopefully others are nicer to you. Whereas if I don't know, I feel like one just is trying to give the moral high ground, and we identify with that better because we want to be moral. Because as a society, that's what we've come up believing, that being moral is good.
but it's
But in
societal.
my
Do you
eyes,
think it's
morality
societal,
is.
or do you think that it's built into us?
I think it's built into us to an extent. Um, and by that, I mean the continuation of your bloodline.
Okay, it's interesting you go there because that's something that I dove into wanting to continue your own bloodline is it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
But one must understand in that idea that in order to continue your own bloodline, you have to continue others too. It's like you're not really continuing just your own, you're continuing everyone else's.
I mean,
Because the
yes,
daughter
but
that you had
you
a
know,
kid with has a father who you're technically continuing their bloodline with.
right, but it's not an instinct that you're acting off of at that point. Now you're reasoning and using logic.
I'm
I feel
saying
the
that once
instinct
you add the
is
logic to it, the instinct is still there, sure, but the instinct
right.
it can manifest itself differently.
Well, so no, like what I'm saying is like for the tribalistic part, that's where the tribe comes in. Your instinct is bloodline. Does that make sense?
Yes, your instinct is bloodline.
And then the logic and reasoning we have says, we're going to need others to even further continue that, and that's why you will, you know, let's go to medieval times, where the hamlet, that those were your people for the most part. A lot of people got along, looked out for each other. The whole thing, it takes a village.
Yeah.
Things to try to bond people together. But I don't think that was instinctual. And I feel like people do react to a lot of things using their lizard brain, more or less. I mean,
It's
a lot
not
of things
avoidable,
are,
yeah.
yeah.
Like that lizard brain is not avoidable. I think that morality lies in the lizard brain, though.
Well, but morality is just what you.
It's
I
like
don't think
morality
there's.
is God, is essentially what I'm trying to say. And if morality is built into us, then so is God.
But that, I guess, from my view, that would mean that there's basically however many people there are that many gods. Because not everyone holds the same morals, especially person to person. I mean, granted, some of them are similar. I'd say they also change a
But
lot,
everyone holds the lizard brain.
especially. Yes, everyone has, you know,
I mean, not even just every
instincts, but
one. Every living thing holds the lizard brain.
no, yeah, I agree. But it's the values that might be also projecting, or I guess not values, because for the most part, I'd imagine they will be similar. But huh, no, that is an interesting train of thought. No one's actually proposed this to me before.
What?
It's a good thing. That God is more or less your instincts, and everyone has instincts. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, for the most part, everyone should have the same instinct, though.
Yeah,
That's kind of a unifying factor.
yeah. It's like
But at the same
the
time,
lizard. It's the hive mind thing that I think you were talking about earlier. It's the same idea.
yeah, it's interesting. Huh.
It is
I
interesting.
will say though, that does mean that if that's the case, and that's like the truth. God is not a nice God, that's for sure.
God, God is it. He's not a not nice God. He is just God. He hmm, that's odd. I'll be honest with you. I'd never put it into those words either, and they do make sense. Those words,
Yeah,
that
I
line of
mean,
thought. Yeah.
it definitely makes more sense to me personally than like Christianity.
Well, let's talk about Christianity because I think that all that is just like thousands of years of people trying to define this instinct, put it into words. I think describe would be a better word. Like describe means to write down. Like the Latin roots for describe are to, I mean, down and scribe write. So to be able to describe something means to write it down, and I would say the Bible is a good example of written down. It's just humans
Right.
trying to put words to this feeling that we all feel, and the reason that it's worked so well is we all feel it.
I,
And when you
I
can
mean,
find
I can
words to
see
what you
that.
feel, it feels good because other people can now align with the same words that you are aligning with. So Christianity is just another definition, description of God, just as much
I
as
guess.
a love song is another description of God. It's like love is this primal thing that we feel, this lizard brain thing that we feel, and when there's words that align with this, it feels good, especially when other people can. It's like a love song hitting top charts. It just means that a lot of people are aligning with this feeling that this artist wrote down and turned into music, and it was able to.
Right.
It's the same thing the Bible does, just in a different. It takes a different route, and then you get
Well,
Christian music, and you're like,
my
oh, you're doubling
my
down, double dipping. Keep going.
my issue with Christianity, though, is all of these fantastical tales, which then are for that they're taken as fact.
Yes, yeah, I
So,
agree
like,
with you.
if
That's the one thing that has put me off of Christianity in the way that it's practiced in the masses, like nowadays. It's like virgin birth. That thing
yeah, like,
is
yeah,
not.
that bitch cheated on him and then just made up some fantastical story, if that even
I don't think she
happened.
cheated. I think she had sex with him. I think that they just
I mean,
didn't want to deal with,
that
oh,
could
you
be
had
too.
sex before you were married. That's not good. You can't have sex before you're married. That's not allowed.
Right. Like, I don't think there was any fantastical thing, and like people like to say, well, 500 people, or sorry, the account is that 500 people witnessed this man coming back from the dead. It's like, really? I mean, especially in those times, like, do you not think people were able to be fooled, tricked, or lied to? I mean,
Okay, so
really?
if a guy is, here's what I'm wondering. If a guy can fast for 40 days, then he can fast for 3.
Right.
And he ate a big dinner before he got killed. That's like documented. There's pictures about it. They even took photos of the big dinner. So he ate a bunch before he went to fast. And he's like a yogi. He's a hardcore yogi. He he just meditated or whatever while he was nailed to a cross, and he had so much control over his body that when they pierced his side, blood didn't come out. Water did. And I think that he was able to, I mean, come back from the dead because he never really died. He just was as close to death as anyone had ever been in their life, but he was able to resuscitate.
See, I don't even know if it's all that. I mean, a lot of people will see what they want to be true. It's just like why I think conspiracies are so out there and so numerous, and why there's so many believers is because it makes the mundane, boring, and ultimately normally depressing life most people live on the day to day fantastical and exciting. It gives meaning and purpose. Like the people that want to think they're being watched by the FBI, even though they're a nobody that lives in their mom's basement. It it makes them an important person to the government, you know?
Yeah.
When in reality, nobody gives two fucks. They might be listening in to see if you talk about Zit Cream so they can show you an ad for Zit Cream. But that's about it.
Yeah,
Granted, extreme example, and I'm using the whole mother basement thing, but you get where I'm going.
I do.
Most people aren't that special. Most governments don't care about the average person.
Yeah. So where does that where does that lead us?
Well, I think this guy, if Jesus Christ was real, because I'm not going to argue that there wasn't a person named Jesus Christ, but being a magician or a con man just seems a hell of a lot more likely to me.
It's
And
it's a fun
if
description.
if people are looking for a higher purpose, because people do, like Greeks, Romans, uh, ancient Mesopotamia,
Hmm.
Aztecs, they all use deities to give them a higher purpose and to describe phenomenons they couldn't understand. Like Vulcan. Vulcan's mad. That's why the volcano's, trembling. So we need to appease Vulcan. That now gives them a purpose to appease that god. And it also describes or gives meaning to the natural disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
So if a con man can come forth like that, giving people purpose, I mean, I feel a lot of people would believe it. And the whole, oh, well, 500 people saw it thing, it's like, you honestly think 500 people would be hard to mislead? Nowadays, you can get tens of thousands to believe misinformation.
Eh, Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with that, because at the end of the day, Christianity has made the world a better place. And there's argument to say it's made it a more difficult place. But overall, the way it is now at least, you can say it's made it a better place. Because this is a better place than it was before, and Christianity is a big part of what's made this place the way it is. So, eh, I'm not a Christian, but I also am. It's like like it's weird. It's like saying everyone's a Christian
You
because
can
everyone.
root for the team without supporting the sport, so to speak.
Well, it's everyone is playing the sport, and Jesus is technically on everyone's team, but so is Buddha or whatever.
Right.
It's like he's on everyone's team
Because
too.
they all are symbols or stories, or I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but this is what I believe
Hmm.
based off what we've been talking about, that I guess these are stories, fictional characters meant to give meaning or a driving purpose behind that lizard brain that we all have come to understand, or a way for other people to.
A way for us to work together to achieve the same goal that our lizard brain gives us.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
And so then, wouldn't that also mean that technically, I don't want to say you're making the argument, but that all religions are correct? Would that also be fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, that would be fair to say. And it sounds like a non-answer, but at the same time, it feels
Well,
like the right answer.
w- when you walk it through the logic we just did, it makes
It makes sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Which again, when you apply logic to a lot of other religions, you don't arrive at a conclusion that makes sense, and instead are given the more or less you just have to take it on faith, which for a lot of skeptics doesn't sit well.
Yeah. It's the example I gave about the love song. It's like those are religious in the same way that the Bible is. It's just we don't give it the same weight for some reason. It's like the both of them are speaking to the God within all of us and helping us to define the God within all of us. And some give you little rules, and some just let you feel. But they're the same in a way. It's funny. It's very funny.
See, I'm gonna be honest. I wish more conversations could go like this, especially with religious people. They tend to.
Well, I
Not
would
all,
say
but
look for, because with this, given this line of thinking, you can go into every conversation assuming that everyone has the same goal. And everyone has different ways about having this conversation. But if you can keep it in the back of your mind that everybody has the same lizard brain as you and wants the same thing, then all you have to do is find the words that they align with, that also work for you. Like that becomes the only job. And some people are more open to align with the words that you try to give them, and some people aren't. But that's where they are in their life, and there's not much you can do in a couple hours or in a couple minutes some people give you to align in that way. But some people are open enough to do that, and those people are fun. Those people, yeah, I mean, you get to this with those people.
I mean, ultimately, I don't think we were really disagreeing, but I like to have these, I guess, just walkthroughs of logic. I don't know why I find them enjoyable.
They're fun. They feel good. And they make sense to me, and I'm glad they make sense to you. And that's why we're able to progress through this. I would say that it's because I find that the most difficult people to have this conversation with are the people that aren't flexible enough in the way they look at things. There's a word for that I just can't find right now, but it's because you're able to find the emotion behind what I'm saying past the words I'm using. Where some people focus just on the words and don't try to look for the emotion that the words are trying to represent. And I would say you're doing a great job at trying to align with the emotion that I'm attempting to describe, to write down with my words. It's the emotion is really what's what is having the conversation right now, is your emotion and my emotion. And we use our words to translate the emotion. But if you look for the emotion behind everything, it's a lot easier to align with it. If you just focus on the words, it's a lot more difficult. That's another, I think, big deal. And I hope that these words are correctly translating the emotion that I'm feeling right now about this whole thing. Is that did that work?
Yeah, no, I think I follow what you're saying.
Okay, good. Another big aspect of this is you're not sitting here in front of me. So like if you were sitting here in front of me, we would have more tools to use to align our emotions. Like we'd have like volume,
I'm
like a
I'm
better.
Italian, so hand
Yeah,
gestures
hand
all the
gestures.
time.
You cannot tell this, but I'm actually using hand gestures as I'm talking to my screen right now.
Yep.
Um, and it's kind of funny, but I what I would say is that it's helping with the way that I'm pacing my words and the way that I'm communicating. Is like you can still pick up on a lot of the body language that I'm using because I'm actually using the body language. I get I feel
Like
bad.
it helps
I'm gonna tell you
pace.
this. I don't tell many people this just because I feel like they get put off and aren't able to have as genuine of a conversation with me. It's like a stage fright thing, but I have been live streaming our entire conversation
Oh, okay.
with my camera on. I'm sorry, it's unethical. I know, or at least it's unethical for me
I
not to
mean,
have told you before we. But the problem with it is if I tell you before we have the conversation, you won't have as like there will be that stage fright thing that is hard to overcome.
not really. That was great.
You cut out a little bit there. What?
Oh, I was gonna say not for me, but I suppose you going into it wouldn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I typically find with people. So but I feel comfortable enough with you that and also we've sort of already come to the climax of the of the so if
The
you
conclusion,
yeah
yeah.
right so if you want to you can see all of my body language like right now technically. I mean, I'm live streaming here. I'll DM you the link, but it's and actually there's no one watching, so there's no just yeah, that's sort of how these things start is no one is gonna watch this shit anyway. I'm only on the 6th episode. um but I just keep pumping this shit out. It's I just live stream the conversations I have with people on this server and other servers,
Fair enough.
and I think that they're interesting enough that maybe I could find clips within the conversation that would be interesting enough for like like YouTube Shorts and stuff.
Yeah, honestly, that would be the best way to advertise, like for posting them on TikTok, on For You page, or like you said, the YouTube Shorts. Clickbait is a big thing. I mean, lizard brain,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
here I sent you the link, but it's a like the owned how like Ben Shapiro got all big was oh Ben Shapiro completely destroys blah blah blah. It'd be like,
Yeah.
but it's I'm not completely destroying people. What I'm doing is I'm attempting to completely align with people. So it's a little different, but I think it's interesting enough that if I do it correctly, it could blow up.
Yeah.
But right now I'm sitting here with no viewers, and that's just the point I'm at in this journey.
Well, I mean, I would say, it's going to be difficult, especially if it's something you're going to want to be doing as a job. It's going to be a
Eventually, yeah.
difficult time to get to the point where you can support yourself off of it, but if you keep at it, I guess the thing you'd want to know is what your viewers are interested in once you start getting them and keeping them entertained, because at the end of the day, it is entertainment industry.
Yep. It's entertainment. I can do it. I think I can do it. With your help, that is. Thank you for helping in this episode of Let's Talk Philosophy. It's episode 6. It's hilarious. It's funny is like I think most of these conversations are just like little mini podcasts with no viewers, and I think I thought it'd be funny like okay let's just actually make it a podcast. let's let's make it so people can listen because
Yeah, I mean,
people are in here and they're sharing their ideas with strangers, and what I assume is if they're willing to share it with strangers, then they are willing to share it with the world, and no one's using their
yeah,
real
I mean,
name, so it's
well, I am kind of.
kinky.
Yeah, that's my last name.
Oh fuck. You are so lucky. I wish I was that
Uh,
lucky.
to be fair, it's not spelled that way. It's German. So
Well, I hope you
instead
do a
of
good job
an
at
I,
continuing your bloodline because I want to see more people with the last name Kinky.
yeah, I get jokes about how I should run for president. I'd probably get elected just based off the name.
That's hilarious. Kinky. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's German, so it's not an I and it's not a Y. It's Koenke, but the OE makes an I, so to pronounce it, it would be Kinke.
Kinky. Oh, that's too funny.
But instead of having to explain that every time I talk with people, I just type it out, Kinky.
Well, I'm glad you went through explaining it because what's funny is like these videos. If I want you to imagine if I do end up blowing up, like let's say I keep making this, and like 200, 300 episodes in, I blow up, and people start watching my old episodes. You're gonna be heard at least once by someone because my episodes are just gonna be
Uh,
there. So
yeah.
this is just funny. It's just funny. It's funny how I like to imagine at least like it could end up being big. But
Well,
it's
and
fun enough that I do this without recording and live streaming too. Like I do just go in here and have fun sometimes.
right.
So it's something that
Well,
I am just gonna keep doing forever.
I think it's interesting that you say that it could blow up, but and that people could watch it because you blow up. But I would say, historically, like most people didn't have a platform that would maintain throughout time, where nowadays we have the internet. I
Yeah.
mean, people from, I don't know, like dial-up age, basically, there's still posts that you can find from people that would have never been given a platform. And you can go back and read everything they had to say about what was going on at the times.
It's so interesting. That's it's so
Um,
strange to think
Imagine,
about that.
imagine what our outlook would be like, because at that point, if something like the internet, like just say there was magical tablets that anyone could connect to anyone else's tablets going throughout history, the saying like history is written by the victors wouldn't be as true. And I wonder how that would affect our view on historical events going back, you know, Roman times, Greek, um, some of the major empires,
Right. Is now history's
you
being
know.
written by everyone.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Granted, that does mean you do need more discernment. You got to take everything with a grain of salt, because there are still crazy people. That's just a true factor throughout all of history.
But now you can listen to the crazy people but also listen to everybody. Like you can
Yep.
listen to everybody. It's not just
Yeah.
the victors.
Yeah. That's why I think it would be interesting. Like, what would it be like to actually know what, the little guys were thinking during some of these historical events?
Hmm. I guess we'll know.
Like,
It's like 200 years into the future. This shit might still be here.
yeah.
And people might do their English project on this episode.
I mean, shit, anything's possible, really.
That's just fucking weird to think about. How weird. How fucking weird. But you have to. Do you think that there's a necessity to make history then? Like to do this? What I'm doing? You think more people should do it?
Ah,
Because it gives
that.
it gives a clearer view into the past.
It does. Now, I guess my concern with it, and I mean, it's not like my concern is going to sway anyone's opinion one way or the other for the
Hmm.
most part on this, but diluting history, because obviously a person's not going to be able to intake all the information. Uh, the more that there's out there, there's to a degree more dilution of information.
Well, I guess that's why people blow up, isn't it?
Yeah,
It almost feels like if I do just keep doing this, it me blowing up just has to happen.
it definitely like the more you do it, the more likely there's one person that's going to find it. And if that one person sends it to their friend, who sends it to 10 of their friends, who then, yeah, I mean that's all it really takes. And then it just steadily grows once you've got your. Uh, it sounds malicious, but I was going to say hooks in someone. Like just kind of keeps going.
It just keeps going. But it that's what makes me want to keep doing this. Is just numbers wise, all you have to do is just keep doing it. It doesn't really matter when. It's like if you keep doing it, eventually people will attach themselves.
Yeah, I would say being consistent is also big because even it has to be something you enjoy because obviously otherwise you're not going to be as interested if it's
Yeah.
something you don't enjoy. But also stay consistent because there will be other people that like the same thing as you. I mean, shit. I'm not. I don't understand the whole foot fetish thing, but there is a fuck ton of people out there that enjoy that. And not too long ago, that was kind of a very taboo thing, sort of like how, uh, some people be like, "Oh yeah, I'm so kinky. I like biting and scratching," and it's like, well, come on, nowadays that's
That's
kind of
just yeah.
vanilla.
That's the norm. Huh. I'll stay I mean, it's luckily I like this. And my plan is to eventually get to the point where there's people that I can invite on and actually speak with in person. That's another degree of complexity that I don't feel is worth it yet
Right.
because fortunately this sort of does work. Me having this conversation with you, it did get us somewhere, and people being
Yeah.
able to follow our our work with logic and emotion, there's value to that. And I'm able to find it in Discord. I'm glad that this exists, Discord. It makes it makes for a great night.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, right now you don't have the viewers, so I mean, it would be hard to explain you not making money from it and investing money to, because obviously you don't want to just invite people to like your house
Yeah.
for safety concerns, I'm sure. Um, so investing in like a property just to do this when you're not making any money off of it yet, you know,
But what's
wouldn't.
interesting is like this being viable. It's imagine if it's just Discord the whole time.
Yeah.
Because there's I mean
No, I
Discord's
mean
growing and
it is.
that's and it's some I mean that even is somewhat ironic. It's like like another person will always just be there.
Yeah.
More
Oh, you're
people
not
will
wrong.
always just come, and some people will
I
know.
would say though,
Keep going.
when you're inviting people, it allows you to vet them. Or like if you were doing it just like this, because like you obviously didn't know my how I would be inclined to behave,
No,
react,
like
respond.
you could have been very racist, and I wouldn't have known it. And
Right.
and that's why I avoid the bigger groups. Is you're able to connect less. I think it's a lot
That
easier
is
to
true.
be the, and here we go. It's a lot it's a
I
lot
better
But
easier.
yeah,
watch what
no,
you say. It's slowly becoming a bigger group.
You're right. Right. That was what
you
was ironic. And it's just it's when it's just you and me, it's I think a lot less likely to happen because I'm able
right,
to
and
ask you about and you can choose to be serious or not. But when it's one on one, it's really difficult to appeal to others. Like you're forced to appeal just to me in your behavior.
yeah, and I feel like that's when you can have a more honest discussion about something is when you stop relying on what, well, these people say or a lot of people say.
It's the
And it's
ego
just how
starts
do
to go
you
away. Yeah.
feel about it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's interesting.
Well, it's kind of like I was having a conversation with my sister because I found it interesting how a lot of people can like blur the lines between distinguishing someone expressing love for them or expressing possession over them. How those lines can be easily blurred,
Hmm.
just to give her a different outlook on things. Because when you think of it, like someone's going to be jealous, generally speaking, of someone they love if they're, getting that attention from another person of the opposite sex. Same like as if you were to play with someone's favorite toy when they were a child. They will be jealous that you are playing with their toy.
I think that's a part of love.
You you want to protect your toy. Yeah. So I mean, but a lot of people nowadays feel like, and I can understand why, because people aren't objects, but I just find it interesting how blurred that line is. I mean, one could question is that a part of love, being treated as an object? I would say no, but
I think being treated
those
as
that
a
don't really
possession,
know.
yes,
Right. I just thought that was an interesting
that is interesting.
look at it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
And
call it a night here. I think
alrighty,
I think this was good. This was good. I appreciate you talking to me.
yeah, not a problem.
Um, but yeah, I'll. Are you on here often? Will I see you again?
I'm usually on here on nights at work.
Okay. Well, I might catch you and that lady that asked about what you were doing. I might catch y'all later.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Kinky. And
Yeah.
Festive and Ponmo, I appreciate you too. Excuse the sound back there. I'll catch y'all later.
Later.
Ah, I didn't let him say goodbye. Okay, sorry. I'm not gonna join back. It's a great conversation. I enjoyed it. I hope y'all enjoyed it too. Uh, yeah, that's like how I want them to go. That's how I want these things to go. Is like that. So if I could have more of that, that would be awesome. No viewers on this live stream. You could catch it after. It doesn't really matter. Let me try and look at the camera. I love you. I hope you have a good day. I hope that this added to your life if you watched it. I hope it added if you didn't. I hope it added in some way. Anyway, have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good life. I'll catch you.